Welcome to the France 24 interview. We are joined today by Dr. Walid Phares, the Foreign Policy Advisor for Donald Trump. Welcome, Dr. Phares, to the interview on France 24. Now, you have worked with the US Congress, the European Parliament, and the United Nations Security Council on international security, Middle Eastern conflicts, and global terrorism. You've also been advisor to Mitt Romney during his 2012 presidential campaign and are now chief policy advisor to presidential nominee Donald Trump. So my first question to you is, of course, how did you get involved in Donald Trump's campaign and why did he pick you?
In this cycle, 5 of the 16 Republican primaries candidates asked me to give them briefings on the international situation, security situation, and on the Middle East, of course. He was the last one to call on me, and we met. We had a long discussion, and he discovered that I could be useful in his campaign, but only till March of this year, where I accepted to become his one of his official advisors in foreign policy and national security.
At the final presidential debate, Donald Trump called Hillary Clinton a nasty woman. Given his temperament, do you think he's fit to be the president of the United States?
Look, it's not me who is going to decide as the voter. And what we have seen over the past 9 months now, he has called maybe many candidates before her during the primaries, many names, and he called her as well. This is a very unusual cycle and campaign. You have to understand what the American public wants in terms of fit. This is not Disneyland anymore. This is a situation where the United States has to make a choice between a Secretary of State who was there for years, met with presidents and prime ministers, but who on the ground has failed in the view of the Republicans in many countries, and blood has been spilled in Syria, in Libya, and between an international businessman who may not have the political sophistication that his opponent has, and has a different discourse, has a different narrative, including what you just have mentioned. That is the choice that exists.
But do you think that should he become president, it's possible to maintain diplomatic relations and maintain the peaceful relationship that America has with different countries with this kind of temperament and with this kind of provocative campaign leading up to the presidential elections?
Well, how to describe him is his political enemies. I mean, the Democratic Party or the Clinton campaign are saying that anything he says is negative and it would hurt these relations. I would suggest to ask President Nieto of Mexico. He met with him, though it is known that Mr. Trump has spoken about how the Mexican government is encouraging the penetration of our borders. He met with President Sisi of Egypt, the largest Arab Sunni country in the region, although he has been criticized that he made a statement about shutting down immigration to Muslims. So that is another evidence that sometimes these populist statements or words that he uses are at one level, and the reality of politics and strategic choices are at another level.
Considering that he has no political experience, and considering that you are his main foreign policy advisor, would you say he has a specific plan to defeat ISIS?
First of all, I am only one of the advisors, but definitely he has a plan. He has been endorsed by 200 generals and admirals and policy planners who have served under various administrations, from Reagan all the way to Bush the father, Bush the second, who have served also with in the campaign of Governor Romney. But the issue at this point in time is how much can he talk about the tactical issues and how much can he talk about the strategic choices? Yes, he has plans, but remember, this is a very vast institution. I often joked about it, even with regard, his opposition and his predecessors. Put any American politician in a room without advisors, without any input from agencies, from the CIA, the State Department, give them a problem. Can they solve it? With the exception probably of those who have served, such as George Bush the father. He was the director of the CIA. So on arrival, he knew many things. But even when you arrive to the Oval Office, this is an institution that is so powerful, so vast, and so complex. You know that the life of a president is organized from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. Every time he's going to make a statement, basically, there are multiple drafts. He will have to choose from them, and he has many advisors. So we're not talking about a little country in the third world. We are talking about a giant. And so goes for Europe, major powers, and for Russia. So What we need to know from a candidate is, once he has the information, can he make the decision? And that goes, you know, when we criticize his opponent, Madam Clinton, she was in the middle of the administration. She had all these agencies. When the decision was made on Libya, on Benghazi, it was not the right decision.
So you talked about having a strategic plan. Now, Donald Trump has gone from saying he wants a total and complete ban of all Muslims coming to the United States to now saying that he will implement extreme vetting, particularly from those wanting to come from Muslim countries. Right. The first question is, could you tell us what is extreme vetting? And secondly, how does he plan on doing this without singling out a certain community that would obviously cause diplomatic ties, even with his partners in the Middle East?
How he's going to do it, it's only when he sits as the president, it's only when he will have the agencies giving him the data. But what he means by extreme vetting is making sure that no jihadists are going to come to the United States. And he is joining here with what the French are trying to do, what the British are trying to do, what the Egyptians are trying to do, and what the Gulf is trying to do. You know, the countries of the Gulf, either totally Shia or Sunni, are doing a vetting to protect themselves from the penetration either by ISIS or by Hezbollah or by others. So the United States should have a capacity in its hands, in coalition with its own community. Muslim Americans will be the first ones to help in that vetting.
Mexico remains a very important economic partner of the United States.
Yes.
How does Donald Trump intend on building a wall and not upsetting this balance?
Okay, that's a great question, because very few realize in the world that he is not building the wall on the Mexican side. He's building the wall, you know, on U.S. soil. I'm sure you visited Ceuta and Melilla. These are the European borders with Morocco. What do you see there? Huge wall. These are Spanish European walls to help the authorities to tell anybody who wants to come to Spain and therefore to Europe that there is a door. And you come, you knock on the door, you have your paper, and you come in. That's what he's trying to say. Now, will we see a physical wall on hundreds and hundreds of miles of border? I don't know, and I don't think so.
You say that the wall is a concept, it's an idea. That is not how Donald Trump has been pitching the idea to his supporters. At the final debate, he mentioned the wall again. And every time he mentions it, you have his supporters saying, build a wall, make Mexico pay. Where does that come from?
That is coming from the primaries when he began to raise the attention. This is very similar to when he said, I'm going to shut down immigration. And then he evolved the concept, meaning, if nothing is done, I'm going to go back to square one and build a wall. But if I can start talking with the Mexicans, I may not have to do all the wall everywhere, because the Mexican government is going to finally send troops to stop these cartels. So in politics, you have alternatives and other choices. He goes to the extreme. That's how he does. One difference between Mr. Trump and other politicians is that he talks too openly about an issue, because public opinion in America has become so sensitive to the failures that he is, of course, banking on this as a politician.
Does that mean that he plays currently into populist fears just to try and garner more support?
Populism in America is very different from what is populism in Europe.
Populist fears.
Populism here, basically, is a result of a popular movement that is not satisfied with the policies of the government. And that populist movement in America manifests itself only during the time of elections, and everybody goes home. We have the largest non-voting bloc in liberal democracies in the world. He's addressing them. Now, this is a political strategy. Mr. Trump is not basically addressing the professional politicians. That's why many professional politicians are against him. He's addressing those who do not vote. He's addressing those who go to NASCAR or to a sports bar, but at the same time are very nervous about the economy of this country, very nervous about the security of this country. So I agree with you, he used a populist discourse to get their attention, and they follow, and they're coming in large numbers.
But by feeding into these populist discourses, do you not think he's doing disservice to these people by not explaining to them what the actual issue is?
Actually, it's not the opposite. What he's doing, he's beginning at their level. They have basic level of discontent. So he tells them, I understand what you're having. If they listen to a professional politician, He starts with the Magna Carta maybe, and these people don't understand what he's talking about, this politician is talking about. He has a different strategy. He goes to their level, tell them, I understand you. And many politicians around the world do the same, but they're not the majority. And then he brings them to the level of where he is. For example, when he did the shutdown in December, then he told them, wait a minute, it's not about the entire community. There is an ideology. And then, wait a minute, it's not just an ideology. These are specific movements. I would say he's educating those people who have no interest in politics way more than his opponents.
Considering that he has already been saying that the elections might be rigged against him, will Donald Trump accept the election result?
To explain it better, if elections are not rigged and if he loses, he's not going to be opposed. It has been explained very clearly. What Mr. Trump is trying to say, don't pull a national rigging against me because I will oppose. Yes, he could say, in our democratic system, under our Constitution, if there is something wrong with an election, you say, I refuse until the Supreme Court intervene. I refuse until the local courts intervene. But we are in a political battle, and his enemies or his foes are going to say, oh, he's anti-democracy, he would not recognize. Of course he would recognize if the court will tell him everything is fine.
And finally, should Mr. Trump form a government, what specific role would you have in it? Is there a position you have discussed with him?
My only commitment was to the campaign. So on November 9, my mission is over. What will happen after that is that the transition team of the campaign, which is actually not in the campaign, the professionals, the bureaucrats who are going to form the next administration, they will meet with persons who have served and persons who have not served and ask them if they're willing to serve. It's too early for that. First, we need to win.
Thank you, Dr. Phares, for joining us today. We appreciate the time you've given us. Stay with us for more news.
Thank you so much for having me.